Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this week's Naked Truth. Trisha Hershberger here. Before we start on today's topic, I want to thank our Naked Army vloggers from last week. That's Chris Kavaja, Hiram Prescott, and Kristen, James, Julia, Colin, Carly, and Allie. You guys rock my socks. If you want to see their Naked Truth vlogs, you can check those out, linked in the description below. And guys, this week I have a very special guest with me. Please welcome Chance McFerrin. Woo woo woo! Hey Chance, how are you today?
Good. How are you doing?
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining. And Chance is joining us today to celebrate the month of Vettober, which is celebrating veterans for the month of October. And you guys may not know this. I'm a relatively new ambassador for Operation Supply Drop, which spreads awareness and helps veterans and active duty members through gaming and brings us all together and uses, they make fun where there is none, which I absolutely love that slogan. And I can't even begin to imagine how hard it must be to serve and then come back from serving. And because I obviously can't share any of those experiences, Chance has been so lovely as to offer to come here and talk to us and give us a firsthand experience of what it's like to readjust to civilian life after being an active duty member. So, Chance, thank you so much for being here and being willing to, share your life experiences on the Naked Truth.
Oh, absolutely. I'm really excited.
And before we get into the super, super serious stuff, I have to ask you what your tats are on your shoulders.
One is the stereotypical like teenage boy tribal design that means absolutely nothing.
But it's really cool.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other is actually just a collage, like an actual drunken with friends in the military walked into a tattoo shop. I like that picture. Give it to me kind of start. And then I have a lot of really bad tattoos that didn't have a lot of thought put into them. So
That doesn't mean they're really bad. They make you who you are.
that's exactly. I'm like the epitome of the old sailor with like all the random stuff everywhere. That's what my arms look like.
That is very cool. So, in addition to your tattoos, tell everybody a little bit about yourself. Who are you?
Now I'm actually I'm a disabled vet through the Veterans Administration. I was medically discharged from the Army, and I actually signed out on terminal leave of New Year's Eve 2008, going into
Wow.
2009. So I've been out what seems like a few years, but it has been nearly, I mean, God, six now, I guess, seven, six.
Yeah.
Um, and I basically spend most of my time with my family.
Hmm.
I try to stay as involved with his school as possible, and then I work with Operation. Well, I volunteer with Operation Supply Drop out here in the Seattle team, and help what I can with a great team out here to have some fun where there is none.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I know that I asked you to come on the show to kind of talk about what it's like to deal with PTSD and deal with coming back after, going through such an experience. So, can you tell us a little bit about what your experience coming home was like?
Coming home, I was really the stereotypical crazy soldier. I came back and I was extremely reckless. I had a lot of anger issues. It was extremely difficult for me to contain my emotions. So I would go from being at a 10 and being
Hmm.
angry to all of a sudden just crying uncontrollably, depending on what the situation was. And then a big part of that had to do, I was a severe alcoholic when I came back.
Oh, wow.
Uh, to the extent that a lot of like when your doctor's like how many drinks you have, I would
Hmm.
respond like it was a normal Thursday, and their face, you get that kind of look,
Right.
and that was nearly a Monday through Friday type of endeavor on a for normal accounts, I guess would be the best way to put it. I drank way too much, and it
Yeah.
didn't help. And I kind of like I didn't really live in the perspective of looking into the future. I just kind of did whatever I wanted, whatever sounded fun, and put myself in a lot of really bad situations.
And what do you think put you in that mindset?
I mean, going on it, I was actually an infantry line team leader, so
Okay.
we were pretty heavy in contact. We dealt with a lot of contact. We lived in a school, kind of displaced a distance from any close fob, and the closest fob, which is a forward operating base, the closest fob was like a mile away from us, and it was tiny also.
Hmm.
So you have this like you constantly feel under siege.
Okay.
And the especially in combat, when you've got a rifle and you start, you and your friends start getting shot at, or there's explosions, immediately you're angry, and immediately you want
Yeah.
it to stop. And losing, changing from a society where that's like your primary focus, and coming back to where like you have to deal with people on a regular basis can be extremely difficult.
I can't even imagine. What did you think that coming home was going to be like?
I didn't really know. I thought I was going to be extremely proud of everything I'd done. It was like, you get that Rambo mentality where like I'm gonna kick ass and I'm gonna be proud of it. And the by the end of it, everything that stood out for me were things that I didn't necessarily want to think about. Not things that I'm not necessarily proud of, but
Mm-hmm.
you lose people that not only you look up to, but you lose people that are entirely too young to lose their lives. So it takes a toll on every end, and for me, I started short wiring from it. Looking back, like it was a pretty steady decline of mental stability, and it just small event after small event led to big event, and my mind didn't hold it all very well.
So, would you say that the biggest challenges you faced upon returning were mental?
Yes. Like I mean, like I said, I was reckless would be the best way to put it. And I didn't
Mm-hmm.
like, I wasn't suicidal, and I didn't, necessarily do things to put myself in danger, but I didn't shy away from them. And I would get
Oh.
drunk and do whatever I wanted. So like, one of my hard memories was being on a country road at 1 in the morning after drinking like two pitchers of beer and a bunch of shots of liquid cocaine, and going like
What?
120 on my motorcycle. I wasn't trying to kill myself, but that's definitely not the situation you want to be in for preservation of life either.
Right. So, what kind of made you change what you were doing? What kind of made you change your ways?
For me, it was my family.
Okay.
My wife in particular. She's been there for me. She's been through hell. She dealt with everything, and she's been supportive in the best way possible. Sometimes that isn't necessarily what I wanted,
Mm-hmm.
but she was strong for me through very long periods. I gained a lot of weight because of a combination of the drinking and medications that I was on,
Okay.
and I gained in I think it was 3 or 4 months back from Iraq. I went from about 185, 190 up to nearly 260,
Okay.
and it took me 40 years to really finally get that off. And I've spent about a year, maybe 2 years now, back close to my normal weight again. And I mean, there was nothing. I had no positive image of myself during
Hmm.
that period, and she was really like my solid support, and the person that got me through a lot of times that I don't think to be honest, I don't think I would have made it through without her.
And so, what would you say to people who come back that don't have that kind of family support or don't have anyone to come back to?
Um, One of the big things about PTSD is it's subjective, and
Okay.
what I deal with on my end, insomnia, anxiety, bouts with depression, and everybody that deals with it, not just from combat but from life experience, has different mechanisms to not only deal with what they're experiencing, but they may experience something completely different than me. And the
Okay.
one thing I can suggest is, if you don't have a support system, reach out.
Mm-hmm.
Operation, I know obviously Operation Supply Drop is a one that I personally feel is great, but find something that works for you.
Yeah.
A lot of times you come back with PTSD and you've kind of lost your identity. A lot of guys, or a lot of men and women in the military,
Mm-hmm.
identify with that patriotic view, and PTSD, for the longest time had more of a negative connotation with it. It has a weakness connotation to it, and you gotta realize that that's not who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I went through hobby after hobby, just trying to find something that I could do to free my time, to help me not identify with all the military, afterwards, once I was in the civilian world.
Yeah. So, you mentioned for you, it's a lot of anxiety and depression and insomnia. that sounds like something that, most people in their lives don't have to deal with. So I guess a question I have for you is, how do you feel when you hear people using that term lightly? Like when you hear people saying, oh, yeah, well, I had an ex, for example, that treated me really bad, and now I have PTSD from it. Is that something that, makes you feel very uncomfortable? Are you very against that, or does it kind of roll off your back?
I don't let it bother me much.
Okay.
A lot of the time, the first thing I always look at is, life is, everyone comes from a different background.
Hmm.
So there is the aspect that, things that I don't consider serious may be very serious for someone else,
Sure.
So maybe, I always try to put that note that maybe they really do have some level of severity to, whatever they're coping with.
Sure.
But most of the time, and this may seem harsh, but most of the time, the people that use that, like how you're talking about, where it's
Hmm.
obviously not in the right context, I look at it kind of the same way as a lot of hate speech nowadays, where when people use it, they're somewhat ignorant of like the seriousness of it. They,
Yeah.
with hate speech, they don't understand where it came from. They don't understand what it actually means and why it's so hateful.
Right.
With things like PTSD, it's just people not giving a severity to what it is. And, I mean, just in the military scope, we lose 22 veterans a day. I mean, obviously there's a problem there. Obviously it's something
Wow.
serious.
That's super serious. So, what advice do you have for people who are dealing with it? I know it's hard because you said everyone deals with it differently.
Uh,
But what advice do you have? I know we talked about reaching out, but anything in addition to that?
the big thing for me is that helped for me was I bounced through so many different hobbies, and it's just some. I got lucky that gaming, when you're playing a video game, you can't really focus on anything else. When you're playing Call of Duty, everything that's going on around you doesn't really register because you're so focused on the objective, and that's one of the things that's helped me. Jujitsu, anything to do with fitness where you can get out of your mind a little bit. Not only is it positive in the physical aspect, but it helps you get away. And if that doesn't work for you, keep searching. You're not necessarily going to find the perfect situation. I know I'm nowhere near that, but you'll find a way to make it work, and that's the important part is finding a way to make your situation as good as you can, and not giving up.
Do you think PTSD is something that gets better with time?
I think in my perspective, it's
Hmm.
changed, and
Okay.
I've learned how to better manage my situation. Like I can't remember the last time I went to bed. Like I was actually asleep before midnight.
Ugh.
Like my average bedtime is 2 to 4 a.m. And whether I turn off the lights at 10 or I turn off the lights at 2, that's going to be my bedtime. Uh,
Right.
and my anxiety, I have a lot of trust issues,
Hmm.
and I've learned I've got mechanisms I use that suit me best to make everything work for me and try to have like a reasonably functioning life. I'm still extremely introverted, but I'm at the probably one of the best places I've been in handling it in quite a while.
Awesome. And what advice do you have for people out there who may know someone who is coming back from active service, or, knows someone who's suffering from PTSD? What advice do you have for them as far as what they can do to help those people in their lives?
Two of the big things are understand that no matter how close you are to the person, that you're not necessarily immune. One of the things that was really hard for me and my wife early on was, she knew I had problems, she knew I had anxiety, I had trust issues, but she didn't expect me, like she expected me to be able to turn that off with her because we spent so much time together, and she took it extremely personal when I had episodes, when I have episodes towards her.
Hmm.
And she's finally to a point now where she realizes that if those days where I don't get out of bed, or I mope around the house and I don't want to talk, that it's not necessarily directed at her, but it's just as hard for me to prevent doing it toward to her than at anybody else. And then the other thing is support in positive ways. It's hard to tell wives and girlfriends and husbands and significant others and family members that if your cared loved one really likes playing video games and that seems to make them happy, it's difficult to be like, let them do it. And obviously everything has a healthy dose to it, but
Hmm.
understand that a lot of the times, we try to find ways to just get away from our thoughts and to get away from the stress or the anxiety or whatever it may be.
Hmm.
And everybody has different ways of dealing with that. So just understand that, even though they may be introverted and they may seem like they're closing themselves in, that may be what they need to do for a period of time. And just try to be positive about it. Try
Be
to support
patient.
it.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, it does take a lot of time. We're 6 years in, and I still have times where I don't want to leave the house for weeks at a time. I still sending an email
Hmm.
is like I meticulously go over any type of communication I have with anybody. I hate phone calls. I usually won't answer the phone, and I'll just text back because that's what's comfortable with me. But even in that text, I fret, I think about it for half an hour and then I
Hmm.
text it, I type it out. And then if there's words I don't like, I make sure to go back and fix that. And that's who I am now. And, there's ways I can work around it and make it as positive as possible, though.
Well, I feel incredibly honored that not only did you take this phone call from me, but this video call, and you're doing it in your birthday suit for the Naked Truth. That takes a lot of courage.
The nudity is actually but not having some of my clothes off, it really isn't that big of a deal. That wasn't much other than my friends constantly referencing this as the naked thing. Like, but for
I
the
feel like
most
I've
part,
succeeded at life. Yeah.
exactly. And the thing for me is, obviously it's the stuff I don't talk about too often. And I wanted to make sure, once again, my anxiety drove me to meticulously bullet point anything and everything we may talk about to make sure that, I didn't misspeak on anything and that I got the message across that, in the proper way. And like something like this took me a week's worth of, work to make sure that I did it the way I was comfortable with. But I appreciate you having, not only myself, but representing the Vettober also. That's huge. And anytime I can help spread the word, I'm more than willing to.
Well, it's the least I can do, and I absolutely love that you're on the show. And I have to ask, since you meticulously made those bullet points, did we hit them all? Is there is there
Yes, I
anything
mean,
else we need to hit?
I don't think there's anything that I missed other than okay, Glenn Banton apparently has won a bunch of body lifting or weightlifting competitions.
Okay.
Um, Double Death Dealer, the COO of OSD. Apparently, he's an amazing hockey player. I'm not. He's the best I've ever seen, and
Okay.
I think that's the important ones covered.
Okay, perfect. So now you got in all your nods to everybody else that you were supposed to get in. That's awesome. Well, again, Chance, thank you so much for being on the show. Guys at home, my question for you this week is how do you, in your personal lives, help to make fun where there is none, in whatever area of life that might be? And how do you help to, bring a smile to someone who may be going through something that you can't understand? Let us know either in the comment section or you can make a naked truth of your very own. And also, since it is Vettober, if you want to spread awareness about Vettober and what Operation Supply Drop is doing, I have a link in the description to my campaign that I'm doing with Vettober, and it's a social media awareness campaign. So, we're not asking for donations or anything like that. We're just asking for you to make little videos saying why you support veterans and, stuff like that. Tweet out stuff with the hashtag. And if you tweet, I think if you tweet and Facebook and make a video, you're entered to win a 3-day, 2-night trip with Operation Supply Drop. And again, that's at no cost to you to enter. That's just for spreading the love. So please go ahead and check that out. The link's in the description again, and I'll put an annotation here on the screen. And Chance, do you have anything else you want to say to everybody?
Make sure to go to the teams.operationsupply.drop.org. Check that out. That is our local community outreach. We're trying to actually create a community in areas all over the world. There's dozens of teams. So if you're, anywhere you want to find out about us, go there, check it out, and you have a good time. We're doing a community event this Friday. So
In Seattle, yes?
we do the community events per team
Mm-hmm.
happen all the time. I mean, every team is supposed to be doing something every month, and they try to keep up with that as best possible. We have a full schedule of stuff coming up. But even if you want to be involved, the teams also has online community events. Like this weekend, we're doing DayZ. Two
Nice.
weekends ago, we did Minecraft. They do everything, so you can find some cool stuff there.
Nice. And I absolutely love that it's gaming that's bridging that gap because I don't know, for me in my personal life, like gaming has been such an awesome way for me to escape when I'm going through tough times. And it's also been a great way to communicate with people that I might not otherwise communicate with. So I feel like, at first people might think, gaming, how does that help? And then when you really think about it, it so helps.
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of people don't think about it's so much easier to talk to someone online than it is in person. And for a lot of people that don't like getting out in big crowds or going and trying to meet people, it's the perfect avenue for it.
Thanks again, guys, for watching, and we'll see you next week. Bye.